Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. If you're like most Americans, you spend a significant amount of your time working. In fact, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work in America? On this podcast, the Work for Change team will. Work for Change, LLC is a team of social scientists, thought leaders, and digital storytellers who dig into the critical issues affecting American workers and workplaces today. Our podcast is co-hosted by Dr. Kendra Jason and myself, Dr. Kris Maycumber. We'll also bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. We are so excited for you to join us as we lead the efforts to humanize the workplace by building dignity and equity into jobs, work, and organizations. Please subscribe to the podcast and share us with your friends and family. You can learn more about Work for Change at workforchangellc.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Jobs and Work podcast. This is episode 12, and I am your co-host, Kris Maycumber.
And I'm co-host Kendra Jason.
And today our theme is Conversations with Kendra and Kris, and the topic for today is digital storytelling.
We are so excited about this topic because it is one of the services that we offer with Work for Change. And it's really different than most consulting companies because, consulting companies usually come in and do an assessment and work with the groups, and that's great. But we offer an extension of that, which is digital storytelling, telling the story of your business. Now, I'm not the expert in this. There's Kris. Kris is our Vice President of Communication and Digital Marketing. And so I'm actually going to ask Kris a lot of questions, just so a lot of people have asked us about digital storytelling and what it means and why is it important. And today we're going to lay that out for you. So Kris, for someone who has never heard of digital storytelling, digital media, can you just give them a quick introduction of what it is?
Yeah, sure. So digital storytelling is any use of digital tools to create and share a story. So that typically means what digital storytelling typically follows the format of video work. So people coming in, creating videos, sharing their story through video images, audio, photography can be infused in that as well. And it's really a way to just use multimedia platforms. We live in a very visual-based culture, and that is increasingly so. And it's a way to really engage a wider audience. What I'm seeing is that you can use digital storytelling to capture something really personal and intimate, to tell a story that is personalized and localized. But then because we have these multimedia platforms, the ability and access to share that widely is really, really, what's exciting for the workplace is that you can hit play and you can hit share and you can share it on all of your social media and you can get your story out in a way that historically we just haven't been able to do.
Okay, so I'm thinking about the wide range of people, especially age range, generational range of people. And when you gave me that explanation, I had two main thoughts. One was like, remember like in the 90s, your dad would walk around with a big camcorder for family vacation. And that's what I thought of, one of like, recording and stories. And then I thought about, the younger generation, the digital generation. And I'm thinking about the TikTok videos and the Snapchat. And those are two really very different experiences. But I really think that's the orientation that a lot of our the people that we come in contact have. So can you give us a little bit more of a concrete picture of what it means?
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's both, it's all of that. And it's everything that's in between. So TikTok has been actually credited for being a way for young people to tell their stories. So, somebody who's, maybe feeling pretentious could say, well, TikTok isn't really digital storytelling because you can't create a comprehensive narrative in a really short video. But I would argue against that. Who gets to say how long a story should be, right? Or who gets to define the parameters of what a true digital story is? So it can be the camcorder on a tripod set up and, all the gear and the equipment and the sort of technological sophistication. But what is great about the current climate we're in, and there's pros and cons in terms of like social media and its reach for youth in children. But for the content of our conversation, if we're talking about digital storytelling, those short videos can be really compelling. And I find the most compelling stories are the ones that are short, succinct, and concise. It could be someone sharing something on TikTok about what they care about, a cause they believe in that can get other people to feel something. To me, the core of a good digital story or a good digital narrative is that you feel something when you watch it, when you hear it, when you see it all put together. If you're motivated to then do something, to act, or to not do something, right? If there's some sort of goal in mind. And people can be compelling on TikTok. People, you don't need to have the full sort of video gear and the whole setup to be able to tell a good story. Most people now shoot digital stories with iPhones. The quality of the cameras are so fantastic now that the video camera, not that they're obsolete, they are very useful. That's what I use. I don't use an iPhone to shoot, but it makes for a great second camera. It makes for a great backup camera. And the quality is just really good now. So, which does democratize it in a way. If you have an iPhone, of course, if you have that, you can then shoot really high quality video. The audio is really good. So what's exciting about digital storytelling is you don't have to be a marketing or a videographer. You don't have to be an expert in that field to be able to tell a story. It does help to have someone work with you who can help ask you the right questions. And I think that's where we come in, like as consultants, is knowing what questions to ask to pull out a really compelling story.
Okay, so again, just making it more concrete for someone who's never heard of digital storytelling.
Yep.
So let's say someone says, okay, I have a business, I'm interested in this digital storytelling. What does that mean? What is it like to work with you? What's the process?
Yeah, great question. I love this question. So when I think of the first thing I do is I sit down with a client and I ask them, what do you want to share? What is it, what is something that's important to you? What do you want people to know about your business, about your organization? And then we just kind of go from there and we talk about, okay, how long do you want it to be? Do you want this? What audience do you want this to be for? Are you looking for this to be for funders and donors? Is this the general public? Are you looking to engage the clients that you serve to try to recruit more people in terms of your client base? And then the other thing I'm always thinking about is, for me, there's two kinds of stories. There's story with the big S. The big story is the story of the organization or company. What does it do? How does it do it? What is its impact? You can capture that. That makes like a pretty good promotional video. But then I think of the story with the small s, which is actual stories. Who is the founder? Why did they start their organization? What are the stories of workers? Why do they get up and go to work every day? What's a story of one of their favorite days on the job, or what client really moved them? Like, what's an actual story? Because we talk about storytelling in a sort of abstract way, because it can mean big story, like the story of an organization, or it can actually mean telling a story. Like when we worked with one of our clients, and she has a mac and cheese business. She is a caterer and does that work, that food service industry. And the entire time we worked with her, I wanted to know, what's the story about the mac and cheese? And I was just imagining, as a visual thinker in my mind, like, did you learn to make mac and cheese when you were a little kid with one of your grandmothers or there, to me, it was like, I was begging for that story. Like, how did this come to be a business for you? Because we have passions, we have things that we're interested in, but to make something an organization, to make it a business, there's big stories there and there's small stories. And I know I'm always captivated by someone telling a story. Like when somebody shares something, like I've always wanted, to share this issue with people, or I always wanted people to learn how to dance better, or I always wanted, whatever people are passionate about. I like kind of drawing that out and helping them see things that maybe they don't even see about why they do what they do, what drives them to do it. So it's really, the process is asking questions like, what's their vision? So it is a relationship of sorts, where part of it is the vision they have for their digital story, but then also offering them what I think would be a good way to kind of present themselves. So it's sort of like they get to have a way to shape that process, but then I'll come in and ask them questions. And then we just get talking to people, we'll sit down and we'll do interviews. And then from there, the story kind of tells itself.
Okay, so good, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking, so again, I'm really thinking about the type of person who just does not have an orientation in this, but we know from our experience how beneficial a digital story could be alongside with your business or alongside with your organizational mission. So can you just say just concretely, like what are the reasons or the motivations for someone to invest in a digital story?
Well, you would want to be able to get your story, your message out to people. You want to
Mm-hmm.
grab people. A
Mm-hmm.
website is helpful, okay? Like having, but it's not active, it's not
Right.
interactive, it's not
Right.
engaging. It
Mm-hmm.
grabs people. You can share it with people. I know with our video, people were able to share it. They get a window into who you are, hearing people talk,
Yeah.
hearing somebody talk, how they talk, their personality comes through. A website, I will venture to say almost impossible to communicate the personality of workers on a website, of your
Yeah.
employees, of leadership. What kind of leadership
Mm-hmm.
style do you have? You can't communicate that with tabs on a website, or you have to be able to see people and how they communicate to each other, how they relate to each other, how they talk about the work that they do. All of those
Mm-hmm.
things are what you can create in a digital story, and that you just can't capture that. You also can't capture that in a report. Like when we're
Right.
working with organizations, we do executive summaries. We're social scientists. So Kendra and I are very much well-versed and well-skilled at writing up results and writing findings. But then
Mm-hmm.
we also do digital storytelling. We say, well, we're going to come in and work with you and capture some of these trends digitally. So you have a record of it. So you also have a report, but it just looks different. It's just not on paper. It's an actual archive that you can then have.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how useful Kris created our digital story
Mhm.
at the establishment of Work for Change. And it was so helpful because our webpage was brand new. We had everything laid out as far as our business plan. But as we were having our first contacts with potential clients, it just gave them, we would send them the video, and the video was less than 2 minutes,
Mhm.
and it just gave them an overview. But I think the best thing it gave them was a feel for who Kris and I are and what we had to offer, what Work for Change had to offer. It was just so much more personal. And I remember our first major client, um, the digital story was actually ready before the website.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I sent that to the executive lead, and they shared it with their entire organization. And then just off of that, they got feedback that the organizational members felt really good about us. And
Mhm.
the website came up like a day or two after, and then that gave them all the nuts and bolts of the business. But those two things packaged together, I really think just really, was a home run as far as securing our first major client, because they got to talk to us and meet us and in a way converse with us, even though it wasn't two-way, before we even had our first real consultation.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, Kendra, because part of what is really exciting about being able to create those stories is if you're a business and you haven't built up a big client base yet, but
Hmm.
you know the work, you know who you are, you know your identity.
Yeah.
It's like you can create you don't have to wait to create your story. There's
Yeah.
no timeline where you have to say, well, it's too early for the video, or it's too early for us to have a visual narrative. You get to control that narrative. And that's what I tell clients is like, you want to control that narrative. So when you
Hmm.
put together a video, you get on the front end of it. You say, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what it's like to work with us. Those are really the core elements of a good story. And then people know who you are. And under 2 minutes, that was my goal, was for ours to make it under 2 minutes. So we can say, this is what we can do. Like, this is who we are. This is
Hmm.
what we do. Here's how we do it. Here's why we do it. I think the why is important. That's where things get really compelling. What drives us? And you don't have to wait until you've quote made it to tell
Hmm.
digital story. In fact, I think having your story, having to go through that process can help people figure out their identity. As you're saying, what feel do we want it to have? How do we share who we are? How do we share our motivation? How do we share who we want to work with? Having to think through all of those sort of marketing questions,
Yeah.
I think helps you clarify your identity. So some people might say it's putting the cart before the horse, but I don't agree at all. I think it's actually a really good part of your process is figuring out who you are by having to go through that storytelling piece of it.
Right. And you remind me too, we run a starting your own business workshop, and one of our recent participants was starting a nonprofit. And it was a really unique business design, very innovative, very out the box.
Mhm.
And, because it was a nonprofit, she was really concerned about funding and how to secure funders. And so, Kris, told her, the digital story would be great to lay out the vision, what it looks like. And so as the potential funders are reading your proposal and you're doing, maybe your 15-minute or 2-minute
Mhm.
pitch to them, you can leave them with the digital story, again, under 2 minutes,
Mhm.
and they could see the whole thing,
Yeah.
come to life, so they can see what they're funding and see what they're investing in. And again, it just makes it makes the story that's on the page come
Mhm.
alive, and people really attract to that, because everyone's not going to see or understand your business vision,
Yeah.
and so I think it's a really good idea to, you know, um, create it for them in a way that's really easily transferable. I also think about too, Kris, how timely the digital medium is right now. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Oh, I mean, I just think about COVID and how a lot of people launched new businesses during COVID because they were like, well, what better time than right now to make this big change?
Yeah.
And I think on the one hand, especially if you're a one person shop, if you're like a one woman shop or a one man shop, you can't be everywhere to talk to donors and funders, but you
Yeah.
can send as an email attachment on social media. We live
Hmm.
in, the era, and people expect that. Like we live in
Hmm.
the digital era. So
Hmm.
digital storytelling is just using the main mode of communication that's already accessible to us.
Hmm.
And I think during COVID, that was one of our strengths. I mean, it did present limits in terms of being able to get like footage and of certain things, but because you just can't get places when everything is shut down. But in terms of the capacity, I mean, you can reach people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to reach geographically through
Hmm.
these means. And particularly for small businesses where, people power matters and people on the ground can only travel to so many places,
Hmm.
being able to share that. So I'm not sure if that directly answered your question about the reach
It
of
does.
that
And
medium. Yeah.
it also makes me think of Kris and I talked and laughed about this, and I'm going to probably make her laugh again, because when we started Work for Change, it was fairly new, COVID-19 was only about 6 months into the pandemic. And so Kris has been doing digital storytelling for a number of years, and she is used to being face to face, shoulder to shoulder, action shots. You're working here and we're in the workplace. And so when we started Work for Change and we wanted to do our digital story, Kris was so frustrated because she was like, oh man, the workplaces are closed, the libraries closed, we can't get these action shots. But and she was frustrated because she wanted to create what the vision would be outside of the context of COVID.
Yeah.
However, I was creating the business within the context of COVID.
Yeah.
So the way that we ended up shooting our videos, where Kris was actually in a totally different city than I was when we
Mhm.
shot the video, and in our story, and you can click on our website, and it's front and center,
Mhm.
we're doing Zoom meetings, we're doing
Yeah.
video meetings, because that is how our business operates at this time. It's
Yeah.
it's a true representation of the work that we can do in the capacity that we can do it. And so I always appreciated that, we
Mhm.
completely were virtual because it's a virtual business and we're in a virtual reality, if you will, right now. And so, when we're able to return to face-to-face interactions and working shoulder to shoulder, which of course we ideally want to do, we'll update and create a new video that represents that type of interaction. But I just wanted to remind Kris that she always like, we couldn't do this. And I'm just like, but it's fine, because this is our reality. This is not, idealistic. This is true.
This is what we do. I know I was sort of like obsessed with like, I want to get Kendra, I want to get you in action. I need you like working in action, and as a documentarian, I would say someone who has the eye and the sort of spirit of a documentarian, I wanted to capture that, So we did it the best that we could. We have our photographs and we have our Zoom meetings and our work. And it's true. We are a virtual business. We are documenting that.
That's us working in action.
That's us. Yep.
Kris literally has in our digital story us conducting a starting your own business. That was not a recreation. That was real. That was live.
Oh yeah.
Pictures from the podcast. I mean, that is us doing the work.
That's the spirit of us. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that brings up another point too, is that, one of my, my mantras in life is the right time to do it is now. Whatever you're considering, the right time is right now. And I think one of the things that is holding people up or being a barrier is that people keep waiting for the right time or the best time to proceed, to change, to transition, to shift, whatever it is, to take a step. And, they always say time waits for no one, and not to sound too cheesy, but really the time is now. You don't have to wait until conditions are perfect, because guess what? That will never happen. I mean, what you can do is you can make the best out of the situation. I'm not saying set yourself up for undue struggle, or if you're totally unprepared, you don't want to set yourself up for failure. But what we have come to see, especially in working with people in our starting your own business workshop, is that so many of you already have the tools, the knowledge, and the base to start your business and actually be really successful from the ground running. It's just that you're waiting on something else to happen.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that Kris can help you do is in her Q&A, who are you? What message would you like to send? Who's your audience? It pushes you through your business plan, and it helps you articulate things that you may have been a little fuzzy in your mind, but when you have to answer these questions to Kris so she can help you create it on the screen, it becomes very lucid. And once you have that lucid vision, you can run with it. Kris, did you want to say something?
I was going to say that's exactly what has happened when we've worked with clients, is that, and I would even venture to say that you create part of the business through having to tell your story. Like you said, like answering those questions, being confronted with those questions helps you crystallize, and to use your word, to make it more concrete, right? To make things more concrete by, and that's what's helpful about having a consultation. That's what consultants do. They come in, they take you where you're at, and they help you get to the next level. Maybe they help you get 3 levels up, right? And and in that, the process you go through during that is helping shape your business and is helping you create the business. So, and I think you're right. People feel like that they're waiting for something to feel right to be able to tell their story, to have a video. People say, I'm not ready to have a video. Yeah, you are. You have a point. If you're at the point where you have a business, you have a vision, you know what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and why you want to do it, you're ready to create that story. And going through that process will help you get to that next level as well.
Yeah. And I also want to say that I really encourage you to use someone external to your business, external to your network, in order to create this story. Because of course it's going to be, one of the things with, small business owners, independent business owners, you try to do everything. You try to do everything. And I understand it's because of staffing and limitations and resources, but it's just like Janita Castro was one of our guests a few weeks ago, and she was talking about marketing and branding and communication, of course. And one of her points was that, she helps she helps tell the story. She doesn't do it digitally in that way. She doesn't do marketing and branding, but it's really important to have that outside eye because they're going to push you and question you in ways that you have not been presented with before, that'll push you forward, and they'll help you create imagery and a storyline that is genuine and unique to yourself. But it's even better because it's from an outside perspective, and you have the freedom to talk to someone who's not close to you, who's not a friend or a family member. So you can have a really honest conversation about presentation and imagery and branding and marketing, and not so much carry all of that personal weight that you have with people who are close to you.
Right. And we can see things that other people can't see. You
Mhm.
know, we can see blind spots. We can see things that maybe they haven't thought about, or we can say, well, that's not how people are experiencing it. Like that's the thought you have in your mind, but that's not actually how it seems to.
Mhm.
And certainly I think that when you go through that process, sometimes you don't like the feedback. Sometimes it can be like jarring, but I think what's exciting is that we can breathe new life into someone's work as well. And that's when you work with a consultant. I think that's the ideal setup, is that when you're partnering with somebody, you feel like you've got this renewed energy, a renewed vision, and better vision, not just new, but better, hopefully, right? It's an improvement. And
Mhm.
when we're working with people to tell their story, we're not just telling a static story, we're breathing new life into it. And it's sort of gets its legs, so to speak.
Yeah, and Kris, your last comment makes me think about when you said like rebranding our workshop that's coming up. So we have a Start Your Own Business workshop. It's a 2-part workshop. This month is April 17th and April 24th. And this month I really it's the same workshop for everyone who attends. But one client or participant that's really can benefit from it is people who already have a business going, and you need to retool, you need to breathe new life, you need a new vision. And so we can also help you restart, if you will, or reboot your vision. And so in that 2-part workshop, Kris has her own part where she talks about digital storytelling, and she can talk to you, one-on-one. Our workshops are customized to your experience, and you can see how this makes sense for you and your growing or your potential business. And so you can find out more information about that on our website. That's change.com. You can also find us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, you found us here on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, and share so we can work to make the world of work better.